Good afternoon, conference. As you know, I'm Dr. Julia Reid, and this is my first speech at conference since Paul Nuttall appointed me as UKIP's environment spokesperson in November last year. Since then, thank you. Since then, UKIP haven't had any formal meetings about our environment policy, so in the light of the UK's forthcoming exit from the European Union, I thought I would talk to you about the EU legislation that I personally would like to see repealed. Although I would be the first to agree that some of the EU's environment legislation has had a beneficial effect in areas such as the cleanliness of the UK's beaches and rivers, and let me assure you that such legislation will still be in force when we leave the EU. However, once we have left the EU, we will be able to repeal those laws which have had a detrimental effect on our country. The EU's climate change policies and green taxes are a case in point. And if Roger Helmer had been speaking to you today, he would have told us about carbon leakage and about the heavy industry struggling to remain competitive due to high energy costs that have left the UK and the EU for third countries, which are unaffected by such draconian and unrealistic targets. Climate change policies have also had a detrimental effect on our environment. One misguided policy has been the promotion of diesel cars. When I was growing up, the majority of cars being driven on UK roads were petrol ones. But in the 1990s, when panic about anthropogenic global warming began in earnest, a dash for diesel ensued due to diesel vehicles being more fuel efficient, while producing lower levels of carbon dioxide. Since 2001, when Gordon Brown overhauled vehicle excise duty so that cars were taxed according to the amount of the dangerous pollutant carbon dioxide they emit, the situation has changed dramatically. In little under 15 years, the number of diesel cars on our roads has risen from 1.6 million to around 11 million, so that currently 33% of UK vehicles are diesel, even though it was known at the time that diesel vehicles emit far more fine particles, known as diesel particulate matter, DPM, which is easily inhaled into the lungs with serious consequences, more than petrol, and almost double the amount of nitrogen dioxide. The issue of DPM is a serious one, as their inhalation is known to cause asthma, allergies, and lung cancer, at the same time as exacerbating chronic health conditions such as heart disease, emphysema, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD, as it's more commonly known. It has been estimated that up to 7,000 people die each year as a consequence of pollution from diesel vehicles. However, diesel vehicles aren't the only contributor to pollution and smog in our cities. Last month, air pollution in areas of London peaked at 197 micrograms per cubic metre for particulate matter on the Air Quality Index, and smoke burning from wood stoves was found to be a contributing factor. Currently, in excess of 1 million UK homes have a wood-burning stove, with about 175,000 new ones being installed per year. Over the past 5 years, demand for wood-burning stoves has tripled, partly due to the increased cost of gas and electricity and the belief that they are carbon neutral and therefore their use helps combat climate change. However, last year, a report from the University of Southampton found that wood-burning stoves liberate significant amounts of particulate pollution into the outdoor air, which threatens to reverse the benefits achieved by the implementation of the Clean Air Act, which was brought into force after the Great Smog of 1952. So, in order to mitigate against so-called global warming, we now have an environment where the air in our towns and cities has been made unsafe to breathe, in order to lessen the production of the dangerous pollutant, carbon dioxide, which is a harmless requisite for life on Earth. The other concern with wood-burning stoves is how and where people get the wood to fuel them. Surprising as it may seem, All woodland in the United Kingdom is managed, and very few permit the collection of firewood, and even then only with a licence. People mistakenly believe that they are not doing any damage by chopping up and taking away a fallen tree branch, whereas in reality it's been left where it is in order to form a deadwood habitat for all manner of woodland creatures. Another threat to the environment is the uncontrolled immigration into our country. And this is another reason why it's imperative that we leave the EU single market if we are to have a managed migration policy. Rather than accept that large numbers of people emigrating to the UK are responsible for the current housing crisis, some people would have you believe that the problem is down to people like us because we're living longer. Irrespective of the reason, they insist that the housing crisis can be solved by building hundreds of thousands of new houses, irrespective of where they are to be built. And already it's being proposed that we should build on parts of the green belt. In Wiltshire, where I live, we have seen an explosion in the number of new houses. Small market towns have almost doubled in size, and the space between them is getting smaller and smaller as our countryside disappears at a frightening rate under tarmac and concrete. How can development on this scale be beneficial to the environment and to the wild flora and fauna, which is becoming increasingly under pressure as their habitat is lost or degraded? On a lighter note, once free of the EU, I would like to see an end to the demonisation of the incandescent light bulb, which was invented by Thomas Edison over 200 years ago. The fact that it continued in production for so long is tantamount to it being a good design which was cheap to produce. These bulbs were banned by the EU because they were deemed to be inefficient due to the amount of heat they produce. However, in a country like ours, where the temperatures fall as soon as it gets dark, this wasn't unwelcome. And it has in fact been said that as a result of banning these bulbs, our central heating has to stay on longer to reach the temperature on the thermostat. Needless to say, there is other EU environment legislation that we could repeal or modify, but I haven't got enough time to discuss this now. What I can tell you is that in the coming months, UKIP will put forward a realistic and sensible environment policy. Watch this space. Thank you very much.